Hey everyone, welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. Today we are going to talk about my new fun love that I've been working on for a long time. My dream deck for Magic the Gathering. This is a foiled out, completely foiled, original foil version of Pauper Elves. I've been really excited for this. This is something I once a year I treat myself to something that I shouldn't buy. Using my rewards points on my credit card. And this is what I treated myself this year to buying. Pauper has been a really big staple at the LGS. We have a bunch of free decks that people can borrow. And Pauper Elves has been my favorite. And I've been always dreamed of having a foiled out Pauper Elves deck. So I wanted to show it off a little bit. This is the deck box I got on Etsy. I thought that was pretty sweet. And then I got some custom dice too. I guess they're not custom. They're just like elf dice. I don't know, I went all out on this because if you're going to do it, you got to do it. Now this is, again, not to brag or anything like that. This is just something I always wanted to do. It's obviously very expensive. This Pauper deck, like the regular non-foil Elves deck, costs about $75 to $80. This one is going to be upwards of like $2,500. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. But here's the fancy deck box, and I did add a little pull tab for the cards because it's too hard to get them. I have my main board here. I'll show you my main deck here, and then sideboard, and then this is cards that I may add or subtract or whatever, take out of the main board eventually, just kind of to play test. And then this is the tokens. So let's get out the regular deck. It is very hard to get cards out of this deck box. That is one big downturn. So I added this like little pull tab thing. You can see like I super glued it on. See, like super fancy. It works though. Cool. So, and you can like set this to the side and you have your dice there. It's a really cool little deck box. And if you're going to do something like this, might as well go all out on it, right? So I always wanted this because I always loved Elves and I always loved Pauper, and it always seemed ridiculous to me to foil out a Pauper deck. And so we'll kind of go through the Pauper deck here if anyone's curious and how it kind of plays, but also just show off the fancy foils. I double sleeve these, and I double sleeve them in Game-Netic. Like they're hard, they're thick, hard sleeves. So you can go to cowdainsmarket.com if you want those sleeves. They're really good. They add a lot of durability to your, to your cards. They do make the deck pretty tall though. It is a little bit, that is one gripe. Those sleeves definitely add a lot of weight. But anyway, I went with the the John Avon. I'm going to get a lot of crap for that. The John Avon art, I really like these. I looked up all the forest art, and I found the one that I liked the best. That was relatively within what I wanted to spend on lands. These are like $4 or $5 each, but just absolutely beautiful. And I love the old Magic borders. So this deck has changed up quite a bit. If you're familiar with the Pauper Elves, a lot of the times you run with one green or one island. But right now in this meta that I'm seeing, I'm running no blue. I'm running no blue and just all green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lands. Occasionally I'll up that to 14. I'll drop something. But 13 seems to be the sweet spot right now. So the John Avon lands is what I went with for my foiled out deck. And then the kind of the bread and butter of this deck is building up a large army of elves. And then you do things like lead the Stampede to draw more elves. So lead the Stampede, a staple of this deck. Your blue is in there for the Distant Melody. I know you're saying, Louis, there's no blue in your card pool right now, where your elves are able to tap for either any color. So that's how you get the blue. So you're drawing a lot of cards. There's your Distant. Man, look how just beautiful these old Magic foils are. I absolutely love old Magic cards. I think they're the best looking things. We'll talk about a little bit of like, is this a poor financial investment and stuff here in a minute, but right now we're just going to show off the deck. So List and Huntmaster, there's 2 of these in the deck. Essentially you're just multiplying your elves. You get yourself some elf warrior tokens. I chose to go with those elf warrior tokens. They didn't have a cool old foil for the tokens. Definitely something they should do. So I went with those for my elf warrior tokens. But anytime you play an elf spell, you get an elf warrior, which is cool. And then here's your kind of win condition on this deck. Your win condition comes from attacking with all of your elves other than Timberwatch Elf. And then in response to their blocks, you tap Timberwatch Elf. to, you know, add XX, where X is the number of elves in play. This is your big win con in the Pauper Elves deck. Super fun to play. People don't, I mean, if they've never played against Pauper Elves, they don't always see it coming. They don't fully understand what you're doing. And so they'll start removing things that aren't Timberwatch Elf, which is your win con. Like, it's great. Priest of Titania. I don't know how to, yeah, Titania, I'm guessing. Obviously, you add a mana for every elf in play. Gosh, just look how beautiful these are. This is the DCI promo, so I went with the original foil version as best as I could. So this is the original foil version. That's the DCI player promo. A Priest of Titania. So again, you're generating tons of mana. When you generate that amount of mana, when you play something like Lead the Stampede or Distant Melody, you're able to play almost every card that you end up drawing. Elvish Vanguard, this card a lot of people love in the deck. I mean, it's obviously a staple. In Onslaught, it was a rare, so it's obviously a pretty powerful card. But, you know, this card, it doesn't do as much for me as I always think it will. It gets pretty big, especially when you have a Liz and a Huntmaster out. It's just a way to kind of offer a threat to the board and maybe keep up on some blocking. But this never wins you games in my history of the playing this anyway. What wins you games usually is that Timberwatch Elf. But it's still a pretty good card. Obviously, it's you're going to play it in the deck for sure. Well-Wisher, another just absolutely brilliant card. You gain so much life in this deck. This runs 4 of them. This is one of those cards that often gets subbed out in the sideboard, or it often gets picked up. You know, maybe I only run 2 of these or 3 of them rather than all 4, depending on the meta, and I may switch up my main board. But absolutely gorgeous Onslaught, completely beautiful foiling. Those old Magic foiling, man. Elvis Mystic. So you've got some, let's go through mana generation here. First off, you've got, this is the newest addition to the deck, the Jasper Sentinel. And the reach on this is huge. In the Pauper meta, there's so many, you know, flying creatures that you have to deal with. This really keeps you around longer. This card has really come into the meta really well for Elves. It has reach at the 1/2, so you can block those pesky 1/1s. And then it's got that tap and untap creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. It's essentially a Birchlore Rangers. It's a worse Birchlore Rangers, which we'll get there. But that flying protection, that reach protection, and then just another way to generate that blue mana has been super cool. Then you got Elvish Mystic. There's some cards that kind of target any card named. So you kind of want to avoid just going all in on Llanowar Elves for your mana generation. This is the only non-foil in the deck. I went with the original printing and not a foil newer printing, simply because I like the artwork. Llanowar Elves, 7th edition foils, absolutely gorgeous. Again, you don't want to run all Llanowar Elves as a result of some of those cards that kind of destroy all targeted names or whatever. That's why you run the Elvish Mystic. It's very rare that would happen, but those are the 7 kind of, you know, or the 6 1-drop mana generations. This is the Birchlore Rangers. This is what allows you to tap. This is really cool because you can tap elves that come into play from like Lysana, because they have summoning sickness, yes, but this is the card that's causing them to tap, which is super cool. So summoning sickness doesn't matter as a result of it being because of this card, a trigger from this card. So anyway, Birchlore Ranger is really cool. This is what generates you. Obviously, it's going to get you that blue mana, but it also is just a great resource to be able to play out your hand if you run short of some mana. Quarian Ranger, this is kind of your absolute, oh gosh, first off, just the artwork, so cool. The foiling, so cool. Another DCI promo. And this card's really cool because you are able to, you're not running a ton of lands in this deck. So that, you know, you're popping lands back, you're able to play them. And if you only have 1 land out, you can play the Quarian, you can tap the land, you can then return that land, play it, and then, you know, you can generate only having 1 mana a lot better. But better than that, what it's doing is you're untapping this Timberwatch Elf, or you're untapping Priest of Titania, or you're untapping Well-Wisher, and you're just multiplying your abilities. Return a force, you control it to its owner's hand, untap target creature, play this ability only once each turn. Such a good card, and if you have 4 of them out there, you can really do some damage. The Longbow, this is, it used to be just a sideboard card, but now I have it just in the main deck, especially on my local meta. There's a ton of flying, and this needs this. You need some flying protection. And then the Nettle Sentinel, oftentimes I'll run 4 of these and only 2 of the Well-Wishers. Kind of just depends on what the meta is shaking out to be. But this card's really good because it works with the Birchler Rangers, and anytime you play a green, you can essentially get free mana out of that and create a ton of mana as a result of tapping Nettle Sentinels, and then they untap when you play a green spell. So lots of mana generation, lots of really cool stuff. I dropped some of the sideboard. Lots of really cool stuff, really beautiful. The only this is the sideboard then. Oh, let's talk about other cards I put in the main board sometimes. I guess we'll go to the sideboard first. Let's go to the sideboard first. So sideboard in my meta, obviously blue elemental blast. You have the access to blue, super good. The card that kills this deck is Electrickery. Absolutely insane card against this deck. And so blue elemental blast allows you to counter Electrickery. That's a big deal. And then also you can maybe counter a lightning bolt or something if you need to keep something alive, but really keep it for that Electrickery. Vines of Vastwood, again, and just another really good card to prevent from some of that removal spells. You're not really going to care about the +4/+4. Maybe you will, but for the most part, you're just keeping it to keep your creatures alive. This is the most essential card in the sideboard, in my opinion. Electrickery wrecks this deck, and a lot of commoner or pauper decks will run those. So it's important to be able to buff up your creatures, and then it also protects against flying, which is huge. Obviously, we've talked about that. You've got the Relic in there. This is great. You need this against, what is it, the blue devotion or black devotion decks, the kind of really graveyard shenanigans decks that we see. We already talked about the Longbow. Again, more flying protection. It's a 1-cost elf. It's good. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then Gleeful Sabotage. In my local meta, there's a really good enchantment deck that a lot of people run. The artifact decks used to be a little bit more prominent, but the enchantment decks are something that are really, really good, and Bogles. And so this one is super good against that. So let's talk. Okay, real quick. Here's some other cards. Occasionally I'll throw this Wildheart Invoker. It's cool, it's fun, but there's better options now. Essence Warden, a really good card specific to metas. Again, I think I like Well-Wisher better. Occasionally, maybe you switch 2 of these out. I don't know. And then those other Nettle Sentinels, again, cards that may rotate in and out of this deck. So I want to talk about, is this a good investment? Obviously, no, it's not a good investment. You should not spend this amount of money on a TCG. This is, for me, it's a good investment because it's something I've always wanted. I dreamed when I first played Pauper, when I first played Pauper Elves, I was like, oh my gosh, I love the old foils. It's just so thematic. But I think this is a pretty safe investment in the Magic world. I think, we may see reprints. I wanted to show you the, we may see reprints like this Gleeful Sabotage that have the, the list reprint or the mystery boosters, and that's crappy. And I know I don't really like that they did that. I wish they would have at least done different artwork or whatever like that. But at the end of the day, these old foils, especially like the DCI promos, and the 7th edition is the first time we ever had foils in Magic the Gathering. And so I think these old foils will always have kind of a premium and a collector atmosphere to it. And at the end of the day, this is a really fun deck that I can hang out and play, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I think that's enough. So is there better investments in Magic the Gathering? Yeah, there is, but I feel like sometimes all I have is things that I invest in. I don't get to actually use and play. And so this is a really cool way to invest in some cards that I do think will hold value or maybe go up in value, but also get to sit down at the table and play with them as well. So super cool. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think about all the cool, flashy foils. And hope you have yourself a great day. Remember to be kind to the people around you. We'll see you again next video.